Hi, we're back at the hotel after work. We're going to go over some more of the tools for our basic beginner toolkit. The one we're going to highlight today is this tape measure. There's a lot of features packed into this one, and just the fact that it was $1.50 from Dollar Tree is, you know, I'm really impressed with that. Um, Anyways, you've got your lanyard here. You've got a belt clip or a tool pouch clip or whatever. You also have a release button right here, and that releases the self extension feature that this one comes with. Let me pull this out a little bit, see if I can do it. And then you press this button and lowers it back in. And that's pretty cool. So let's talk about some of the measurements that they have on this specific tape measure. You have your inches on this side and you have your centimeters on the other side. And no matter how much you would like them to, they'll never match up exactly. One of the other features on this is you have a little bit of a hook. Let me see if I can get a better view. So you have a little bit of a hook so you can grab onto things, and you have a little notch there to hook onto like nail heads and things like that. So when you're spreading your tape out, it'll grab onto that, and then you can pull it back and it'll stay locked in, and you won't constantly have to go back and reset it. That's, if you're working by yourself. This piece here, it has a little bit of wiggle, and that is designed. It's designed to what's the word I'm looking for? It's made to count for itself. So if you're measuring up against something, you want to butt this up against something, and it gives a little bit to account for the width of the tooth there. And if you're pulling against something, measuring the outside of something, it has a little bit of give the other way to account for the thickness of this piece of metal in your measurement. One of the things about different tape measures is there is a chance that they might have slightly different scale on them. The year 2026, probably not going to be that big of a difference between tape measures, but there is always that option, that chance that this tape measure is going to be slightly off from that. And if anything, it'd be like a 16th or 32nd, if that. But you want to make sure that either your tape measures are all the same and that they're exact, or that you use the same tape measure for the measuring part and for the transferring of that measurement onto whatever it is that you're cutting or needing to measure. That way, if this tape measure does have any variations, if it has variations between itself and another tape measure, if you use the one tape measure every time for both parts of the job, the variations are only going to be between that one and if you use another one. So if you're off on this one, you'll be off the same on both sides, so you'll be correct. You just start getting into issues if you start swapping tape measures between. But anyways, we'll start on this 1 inch line here. The line just after the number, the full line, represents a full inch. So we'll start off here because it's got this metal bracket here. So you've got full line to full line is 1 inch. You've got full line to the next longest line, and that's 1/2 inch. You've got full line to the next longest line is 1/4 inch, and then halfway between that is an 1/8 inch, and halfway between that is a 16th, and halfway between that is a 32nd. So for people who are unfamiliar with that, you start off and they're fractions, right? So you got 1 of 1. So 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom. That's 1 inch, 1 of 1, right? So then you've got 1 out of 2. And that's how the half works, 1 over 2. So it means you're selecting one piece of the 2 pieces available, right? So 1 over 2 is half. And then again, 1, you want 1 of the 4 pieces that are available. So 1 is the numerator and 4 is the denominator. So 1/4. So 1 of the evenly divided 4 pieces of an inch. And then you break that all the way down into, infinity, but this one's measured to 30 seconds. So when you get measurements like 3/8, you're looking at your 1/8 inch mark, which is this one here, because it's halfway between a 4 and or a 1/4 inch and an inch. So your eighth is that. So 3/8 is going to be from your 1 inch line, 1/8, 2/8, 3/8. So that means 3 of these 1/8 inch segments are the ones that you're choosing. So an inch and 3/8, you go your inch and you add your 3/8 on top of it. And that's going to put you, it's putting you halfway between a 1/4 and a half, but you are basically 3/4 of a way from 1 inch to 1.5 inch, if that makes any sense. But as you go smaller in measurements, your number on the denominator goes higher because you're breaking it down into a smaller piece, into more pieces. So the pieces will be smaller. So if each one of these segments is 1 inch, you're dividing this inch into 2 pieces, into 4 pieces, into 8 pieces, into 16 pieces, and then finally into 32 pieces. And then as you go from there, you would go, well, I want 2 30 seconds. Well, you can do 2 30 seconds, but 2 30 seconds is also a fraction that reduces down into 1/16. You divide both sides by 2, so you get 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 32 divided by 2 is 16. Basic fractional math, but a lot of times it's a little bit confusing. But you're selecting of the available pieces that are on the bottom, you're selecting however many of those that you need for your measurements. Now, when people say, "Oh, just a smoosh past 1 inch," or 2 inches, but heavy 2 inches, so that means if you were to take this 2 inch line and you're going to draw a line using this measurement, you might cut just on the outside of the line so that you see the line, versus taking the line away when you draw it. So just under 2 inches, you would draw a line at 2 inches, and then you would cut so maybe you can't see the line. And then of course you'll become a little bit more familiar with how thick everything is, and you have to take into what's called the kerf, which is the thickness of the blade. So if I mark at 2 inches and I cut that mark away, the standard blade is 1/8 inch thick. So you're losing, that much width. So if you measure and then cut on the wrong side of your measurement, you're going to be off by up to 1/8 of an inch, sometimes more. Again, this is a little bit complicated for the beginner. Some of the concepts and the thought process behind it is a little bit confusing, especially when you start getting into these bigger/smaller measurements. Bigger denominators equal smaller measurements. And then you know, if say you've got a 3/8, and the reason why it's a 3/8 is because 3 and 8 can't be reduced any further. If you remember back into your elementary school fractions. But anyways, this one comes pre-divided into 32 different pieces. If you counted every single one of them, from full line to full line, you get 32 lines. And now each one of these lines also count as the line that's smaller next to it, if that makes any sense. So you don't skip this thicker line or this longer line because it's longer than the 32nd line. You don't skip the 16th line. That is one of the 32nd lines. It's just like a 1/2 inch line is one of the 32nd lines. So you have to count that line with all the other ones. So yeah, do you have any questions? And then the centimeters, the centimeter side, you know, it's honestly, they're a little bit easier because each one of these lines is a millimeter. 10 millimeters in a centimeter, 10 centimeters in a decimeter, which is why the 10 is red. 10, sorry about that. 10 centimeters and or 10 decimeters, I think, is in a meter. Anyways, so then you do have your big 1 foot marks at the 12 inches, and then you should have another one at 24 inches. Some of them also have the common numbers in different colors. So, you know, some of the other tape measures, you'll have maybe a 6-inch or 8-inch will be in red font. 18 inches for sure, 16 inches, stuff like that. Anyways, for a beginner, this is a pretty powerful tape measure, just for the fact that it is $1, and it's, you know, it's got the centimeters and the inches, and they're broken down into 30 seconds. So there's actually, you know what? Looking at it, just the first 6 inches is broken down into 30 seconds. The other ones are broken down into 16ths. So that's good to know. So you've got 30 seconds. So what you would do is you would measure your 1 foot, and then you could either estimate the 30 seconds or get your mark at a foot and then move your tape measure and then count your 30 seconds off. But anyways, with the self standout tape measure like this for $1.50 is pretty fantastic deal. Again, I haven't used it other than what we've gone over here in the hotel, but you know, I'll plan on using this when I get home, start working on some projects. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I hope to be informative. I appreciate your time.